She said I was just a lab tech, so I partnered with her advisor and got her expelled from academia. Hi, I'm Evan, 31, and the moment I saw my boyfriend's friend look at me like I was some charity case with the screwdriver, I knew something was off. We met at trivia night. Me and Nathan, both engineers, both obsessed with deep space documentaries and maps of places we'd never afford to visit. I worked in a lab designing satellite components. He did consulting for aviation firms. We'd cook dinner while bouncing ideas off each other about propulsion optimization and orbital debris strategies. It was easy intellectual partnership and all that. Until Melissa, Nathan ran into her at his high school reunion. She was doing her PhD in theoretical physics, and somehow she went from distant memory to front and center of our weekends within 2 weeks. I tried to be welcoming, genuinely. I asked questions about her research, even took notes once, because quantum tunneling genuinely fascinates me. But she answered like I just wandered in from kindergarten. Then she'd toss Nathan a smug smile and say things like, "Wasn't that adorable?" Like I was some well-meaning golden retriever. Then came trivia night, the one where the topic was space exploration. My domain. I crushed it. Melissa told Nathan afterward, I probably just memorized facts without context. Nathan laughed. Said maybe we should give the other teams a chance. It didn't stop there. He started double-checking my work on our home network setup, on code I wrote to help him. Melissa said it was messy. He believed her. Spoiler, it wasn't. The breaking point? Nathan's company party. I was explaining a new propulsion model to his boss when Melissa slid in like a villain in a soap opera and casually dropped, "Oh, she's just a lab tech." Cute, right? His boss blinked and said he thought I was the one who published that paper on thermal diffusion. Melissa? She laughed and said, that must have been someone else. That paper was pretty math-heavy. Nathan didn't correct her, just stood there, silent. In the car, he told me Melissa was concerned we weren't intellectual equals, that maybe I'd be happier with someone at my level. I asked what level that was. He said Melissa noticed I struggled with abstract thought and relied too much on practical knowledge. Right. So decided if they both wanted to treat me like I was dumb, I'd play dumb. I bought pop science books and left them on the counter, faked confusion over basic topics, played the sweet, simple partner all to perfection. Meanwhile, I got to work. While Melissa was busy treating me like the group pet, I was quietly collaborating with someone who knew exactly how capable I was. Dr. Harrison, Melissa's own PhD advisor. He and I had co-authored 3 papers in the past. He respected my expertise. When I reached out with a fabricated interest in applying quantum theory to satellite navigation systems, he was intrigued. He looped Melissa in without realizing I already knew everything about her methods and her weaknesses. She sent me drafts of her research, unaware I was reviewing them for flaws, not collaboration. And oh, the flaws. Her code was bloated, inefficient. Her math, obscure for the sake of sounding smart, not to advance clarity. But the worst part, the plagiarism. Paragraphs lifted from old Russian academic papers so niche they flew under standard detection software. I compiled a 14-page review, footnoted and cross-referenced, and sent it to Dr. Harrison. He was horrified. Melissa showed up at the university the next week expecting to discuss her dissertation timeline. Instead, she walked into a review board meeting and got blindsided by the evidence. Her funding was pulled. She was told to clean out her office within 2 weeks. Nathan called me in a panic, saying Melissa was having a mental breakdown and needed support. I said I'd help. Of course, I would. I showed up at her office with tea and cookies, sat across from her in that cluttered, suffocating little room, while she cried into her hands and asked the universe who had set her up. My review was open on her laptop, my words. She begged me to read it and tell her if it sounded fair. I pretended to squint at the screen, nodded slowly, and said it looked thorough. She thanked me, said I was a good friend. My phone buzzed. Nathan asking if she'd said anything. I told him she was too upset to talk. True, but as I stared at her, slumped and broken, I felt something unexpected. Not regret, not pity, just a strange stillness. Nathan didn't let up. He kept texting updates like I was some neutral party, not the one who'd pulled the pin. Melissa won't answer my calls. I'm worried about her. Do you think she's okay? I kept nodding, playing supportive girlfriend. Maybe she just needs space. But inside, I was watching him spiral, torn between loyalty to her and this creeping doubt he couldn't shake. His brain kept glitching on the idea that maybe, just maybe, he'd believed the wrong person. He just didn't know how wrong yet. Until Wednesday night. We were halfway through a documentary when he paused it, turned to me, and said, "I've been thinking about what Melissa said, about us not being equals." My stomach clenched, but I stayed still. "I'm starting to wonder if I let her get in my head," he added. I asked calmly, "Do you really think I struggle with abstract thought?" He hesitated. "I don't know." She made some points. "You do focus a lot on practical applications." I stared at him. "Do you remember our Mars consciousness debate? The philosophical one that you started?" He blinked. "Yeah. Did that seem surface level before Melissa told you it was?" He didn't answer. I stood, walked to the window. The words were there, fully formed, ready. I turned back and said, "There's something I need to tell you." I told him everything. The collaboration with Dr. Harrison, the draft reviews, the plagiarism, the documentation, the anonymous submission to the academic board, the fallout. Nathan looked like he'd been dropped out of orbit. "You destroyed her career?" I nodded. "She tried to erase mine. I didn't lie. I just exposed her." He looked horrified. "But why?" And that's when I listed it all. Every time he doubted me. Every time Melissa had mocked me in front of him, and he'd said nothing. The trivia night. The router. The party. The car ride where he'd calmly told me maybe I should date someone at my level. His face got wider with each example. He opened his mouth, closed it again, tried to defend himself. "She had a PhD. She sounded credible." I cut him off. "And I had 2 master's degrees and 6 years of engineering experience. I published research, and you chose her word over mine." He actually asked me if I had faked the plagiarism just to get revenge. That's when I lost it. I brought my laptop over and showed him the documents. Side-by-side comparisons. Line by line. Equations lifted without citation. Paragraphs reworded just enough to avoid detection. His jaw slackened as he saw the Russian sources. Saw my analysis. Saw how deep the fraud went. He sank back into the couch, covered his face. "I didn't know. I didn't think." "I'm sorry," he mumbled. I said nothing, because this wasn't about Melissa anymore. It was about the person who was supposed to know me better than anyone looking at me and seeing someone less. We sat there in silence for a long time. Him curled into the corner of the couch like a kid who'd broken something priceless. Me just staring at the cold takeout on the table, wondering how the hell we'd gotten here. Nathan eventually whispered, "I didn't mean to doubt you like that. I felt inadequate. Melissa made me feel smart, like I finally belonged." There it was. He wasn't just threatened by me. He was relieved when someone else told him I wasn't all that. "I've always felt like a fraud," he continued, rubbing his palms together. "You're this person who can design circuits in your sleep and code blindfolded. I'm a consultant. I don't build anything. I just talk. So instead of talking to me," I said, "you found someone who made you feel better by tearing me down." He didn't deny it. I didn't ask him to leave that night. He didn't offer, but we both knew something fundamental had shifted. The easy rhythm we used to have gone, replaced by something brittle and bruised. He packed his things the next day without me asking. Watching him carry his jackets out of my closet felt surreal, like I was watching someone move out of a memory. But the weirdest part, my apartment felt bigger without him. Not sadder, just clearer. Like space had opened up for the version of me I'd stopped being around him. The one who didn't downplay her own intelligence to protect someone else's ego. 3 days later, I got an email from Dr. Harrison. He thanked me for my review again, but said something that stopped me cold. "Since your analysis," he wrote, "2 other graduate students have come forward with concerns about Melissa's previous collaborations. It looks like your review may have uncovered a broader pattern." I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. What I thought was personal might have been the tip of something systemic. That should have made me feel vindicated. And part of me did. But another part just felt hollow. I hadn't just exposed fraud. I'd broken a dam. If Melissa had been manipulating data, plagiarizing, and pushing others aside this whole time, was I the only one who saw it? Or just the only one angry enough to do something? That night at the lab, Kara found me in the break room pouring my third cup of coffee. "You okay?" she asked, eyeing me over her mug. I lied and said I was fine. She tilted her head. "You seem different lately. More confident." "Yeah, but also like, you're carrying something." I didn't tell her the whole story. Not yet. But I said this. Turns out when someone tries to make you smaller, you either shrink or sharpen. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. I went back to my desk, opened a new file. Title: Systems Integrity Review Preliminary Report. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something like peace. A week after Nathan moved out, I got a text from him asking if we could talk. I left it unread for a day. I wasn't sure what I wanted to hear or say, but curiosity won out. We met at a coffee shop. Neutral ground. He was already there when I walked in, nervously flipping through a notebook. He slid it across the table when I sat down. "I've been writing down every time I remember questioning you," he said. "Every time I explained something you already knew. Every time I made you feel small." It was longer than I expected. Pages. Dozens of entries, each dated. Each noted in clinical, brutal detail. May 12 asked if she was sure about the capacitor values for the satellite mock-up, even though she's led that project for months. June 3 explained machine learning basics to her. She has a master's in it. Some were things I'd forgotten. Others burned into my memory. When I looked up, his face was tight, like he was bracing for impact. "I didn't realize how long this pattern had been building," he said. "It wasn't just Melissa. She just amplified what I'd already been doing." I nodded. "That's the part that scares me." He admitted it finally. That he'd always felt a little outclassed. That my confidence in the lab, in technical discussions, made him question his own worth. So when Melissa started validating those fears, he clung to her perspective like it was gospel. She gave him something I didn't. Superiority. "You didn't need to be smarter than me," I said. "You just needed to respect me." He swallowed hard and said, "I know." We sat there in that quiet space between accountability and aftermath. He asked if I thought we could fix it. I didn't know. We started therapy. Couples counseling. It was awkward, vulnerable, tense, but honest. In a way, we'd never been before. The therapist said something in our second session that stuck with me. Betrayal doesn't always look like infidelity. Sometimes it looks like choosing someone else's opinion of your partner over your own experience. Nathan flinched when she said it. So did I, because that was exactly it. He'd let someone else overwrite what he knew about me. And I'd chosen calculated revenge over open confrontation. We both had work to do. He started unpacking his academic insecurities, the way he'd idolized credentials over actual knowledge. I worked on being more direct, on not letting people diminish me, even when they came cloaked in confidence and fake mentorship. Slowly, things got better. Not easy, just more real. And then something unexpected happened. My boss called me into her office. I figured it was about the satellite component tests, but she smiled and said, "You're being promoted to senior engineer." Just like that. A raise. A team of my own. Full autonomy on the next generation navigation project. I was stunned. After everything that had gone wrong personally, my professional life was accelerating like a rocket. That night, I told Nathan. His face lit up. And this time, instead of telling me I was smart for a lab tech, he told everyone at the celebratory dinner about my work, my papers, my ideas. It was the first time in months I felt seen. The celebration dinner Nathan threw was actually great. A little over the top, sure, but the right kind. He invited friends from both our circles, engineers, old college buddies, even his boss, and he didn't just play supportive boyfriend. He showcased me. He talked about my research like he'd actually read it. When someone brought up quantum stabilization and cracked a joke about not being smart enough to get it, Nathan said she could teach a class on that blindfolded. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like I had to downplay my own brilliance to make him comfortable. But the real test came the next week when Kara pulled me aside at work. She had that face. The "you need to know something, but I'm not sure how you'll take it" face. Melissa's out, she said, out of the program. Not just suspended, gone. She'd withdrawn entirely, packed up her life, moved back to some small town in Ohio to work for her family's real estate firm. The dream of academia? Dead. My stomach twisted. I knew I'd dropped the match, but I didn't expect the fire to spread that far. Kara said, she burned a lot of bridges. Yours just lit up the sky. I nodded, said thanks, went back to work. But my focus was gone. I couldn't stop thinking about Melissa. And not because I missed her or felt sympathy, exactly. It was complicated. She'd tried to sabotage me. Repeatedly. She lied, manipulated, undermined my career and my relationship. She deserved consequences, but losing her entire academic future? That weight didn't sit as lightly as I thought it would. I told Nathan over dinner. He looked genuinely sad for a second. She did it to herself, he said. You didn't lie. You didn't fabricate anything. You just found what was already there. I nodded. Still feels weird being the person who pulled the plug. You were also the person she targeted. For no reason other than ego. I didn't answer. Because there was a reason. I was competition. I had Nathan's respect. And maybe, deep down, she saw something in me that threatened her narrative about who deserved to be seen as the smartest person in the room. That weekend, we sat through another therapy session. We talked about forgiveness, what it looks like when you're still rebuilding. Trust. Nathan admitted, he sometimes still caught himself checking my expressions when he explained something, making sure he wasn't slipping back into old habits. I told him I sometimes waited for the next comment, the next moment where he'd doubt me again. It's not mistrust, I said. It's muscle memory. The therapist said that was normal. That healing meant noticing those reflexes and choosing something different. Anyway, we were trying. Trying felt better than pretending, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't sometimes dream of sending Melissa one last message. You underestimated the wrong lab tech. I never did. Because at some point, the best revenge isn't a final word. It's a life that doesn't need to say anything else. 2 weeks later, an email hit my inbox with the subject line that made my chest clench. I know it was you, Melissa. I stared at it for a solid minute, finger hovering over delete. But I couldn't. Not yet. I opened it. No threats. No rage. Just deflation. She said she'd figured out I was the one who reviewed her work, probably pieced it together through Dr. Harrison's correspondence after the fallout. Said she hadn't wanted to believe it. But once she saw the detailed review, the Russian sources, the annotations, she knew. She admitted the plagiarism, that she'd convinced herself the copied ideas were just common knowledge, and the similarities were coincidence. But laid out side by side, she couldn't deny it anymore. Then she said something I didn't expect. She said she didn't blame me, that she'd been behind on her research, exhausted and cut corners, convincing herself it was harmless, that she'd spent months feeling behind everyone else in her cohort. So she built up this persona one where she was the smartest, sharpest, most untouchable. She said I threatened that image. I thought if I could make you look smaller, I'd feel bigger, she wrote. But all I did was show how insecure I really was. She ended with, I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know. I sat rereading it 3 times. My heart wasn't racing. I wasn't angry. I felt tired. The kind of tired that comes after a storm, when everything is technically fine again, but the cleanup's still ahead. I didn't reply. Just forwarded it to Nathan. He called 10 minutes later, his voice shaky. She admitted it? Yeah, I said. All of it. He apologized again for believing her, for doubting me, for everything. But this time, it felt like we weren't circling the same well. It felt like we'd turned a corner. Then he said something unexpected. Would you want to try couples counseling again? Not because something's broken, but because I think we're finally ready to build something better. I didn't answer right away. I was looking at the email again, rereading Melissa's line. I thought if I could make you look smaller, I'd feel bigger. That had been the problem all along, not just with her, but with Nathan too. People trying to boost their own worth by chipping away at mine. And for the first time in months, I realized I wasn't shrinking anymore. I told Nathan yes. Let's try again. But this time, with everything on the table. No pretending, no silence, no saving face, and no underestimating me ever again. 3 months later, everything felt quieter. No more dramatic texts. No more doorbell confrontations. Just the steady, unglamorous work of trying to build something honest again. Therapy became a space we both looked forward to. That surprised me. We didn't just talk about the Melissa incident anymore. We dug deeper into the patterns behind it. Nathan's fear of not being enough. My tendency to let things slide until I exploded with precision vengeance. Our therapist said something that stuck. Smart people don't avoid emotions, they over-intellectualize them. Which means when they finally feel something fully, it hits like a freight train. Yeah, that sounded about right. Nathan started getting real about his self-worth. He talked about growing up the almost kid, almost valedictorian, almost the best coder, always just behind someone else, and how falling for someone like me, a woman who walked into a room with plans already in motion, lit up all those old insecurities. I wanted to be proud of you, he said once, eyes glassy. But I wanted to beat you too. That's not partnership. That's competition. I told him I used to soften my language around him. Dumbed down explanations. Pause before finishing my thoughts. All to protect him from feeling behind. That's not love, I said. That's code switching for someone who's supposed to know me. We both had to relearn how to show up as ourselves without flinching, and strangely, through that messy work, something better emerged. We laughed more, shared more. We started cooking again, but this time with no one playing sous chef, out of obligation. He asked about my work because he wanted to know, not because he was checking for comprehension. And when he didn't understand something, he just said so. No ego, no shame. He started helping his own team at work feel less intimidated by high-level concepts. Told them that clarity wasn't dumbing down, it was leveling up. Meanwhile, I stopped filtering myself. I spoke in full thoughts. Used technical terms without apology, shared wins without fearing they'd come off as bragging. I didn't carry guilt for being sharp anymore, because that's the thing about being underestimated. Once it happens by someone close, you learn to either shrink or stretch. I stretched. Melissa, last I heard, she was still back in Ohio, doing admin work for her dad's real estate business. She hasn't reached out again. I doubt she will. And Nathan? He's not perfect. But he's learning how to stand next to me, not behind, not in front. Next to, I didn't take him back because he apologized. I took him back because he changed. The day I got offered a guest lecture spot at MIT, Nathan booked a dinner reservation before I even told him yes. I want to toast the most brilliant woman I know, he said, and for once, I believed he meant it. No shrinking, no pretending, just me, fully seen, and that's the win.